Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are discussing the next topic, which is chronic pancreatitis. Previous lecture I have given you a complete lecture of the acute pancreatitis. What is the pathophysiology? What happens to the pancreas, and what are its etiology, and how we investigate, and what are the steps of the treatment, and how we assess the severity and mortality of the patient in the acute pancreatitis. Today we are discussing the chronic pancreatitis. Basically, this is the sequence of the acute pancreatitis. Basically, in chronic pancreatitis, there is irreversible and permanent fibrosis with chronic inflammation after multiple episodes of acute pancreatitis. So this is very important that after the multiple episodes or recurrent episodes of the acute pancreatitis leads to the destruction of the pancreas with fibrosis and destruction of the exocrine pancreatic tissue. So the pancreas basically becomes non-functional. Now we see what are its causes which lead to the chronic pancreatitis. We call it typically the alcohol is the main cause of the chronic pancreatitis. It is main cause in acute pancreatitis, and at the same time it is also the main cause of the chronic pancreatitis. Second is the stenosis of the ampulla of the Walter, and next is the cystic fibrosis, and the most important is the idiopathic, where the cause is not known. So you must remember alcohol at the topmost of cause of the chronic pancreatitis. Now the clinical feature, how does the patient presents to us? Almost all the patients present to us with the abdominal pain. In 50% of the cases, this occurs as episodes of acute pancreatitis with some permanent pancreatic damage. In some patients, it presents slowly, progressively, without acute exacerbation, and in a few patients, it presents with diarrhea without abdominal pain. So, main complaint is the abdominal pain. It may be episodic or slowly progressive, whatsoever is character. It's not a constant for all the patients. Moreover, it radiates to the back of the patients. Second important presentation is the weight loss. This may be due to the anorexia or avoidance of the food because of the pain. So malabsorption results in weight loss. Sometimes diabetes occurred, and this also contribute to the weight loss. Other is the steatorrhea. This occur more than because more than 90% of the exocrine tissue is destroyed in this condition. So this leads to the less absorption of the fat, and when the fatty diarrhea occur, it is known as steatorrhea. Moreover, there is gradual development of the exocrine and endocrine failure, and this also results in malabsorption, which I have already told you. Most important is that patient develops usually diabetes mellitus because the beta cells are located in the pancreatic tissues. When they are destroyed, islands of Langerhans cells are also destroyed, and so the insulin production is decreased. So as a result of decreased insulin production, patient develops the diabetes mellitus. Now we see the complication, which were in detail. I have explained to you the pseudocyst, which is basically a epithelioid cystic-like structure filled with the fluids, and it occur in the acute pancreatitis and sometimes occur in the chronic pancreatitis. Other is the pancreatic ascites mechanism. I have already told you, because of the leakage of the enzymes. Other is the obstructive jaundice because of inflammation at the ampulla of the Walter. The patient biliary tract is obstructed, and this result is the obstructive jaundice. Other is duodenal stenosis portal or systemic vein thrombosis, and peptic ulcers. These are the few complications of the chronic pancreatitis. Here we see the structure, what happened. These are the basically the pancreatic duct. Its architecture is distorted, somewhere it is dilated, somewhere it is constricted. So here is the dilated and here is the fibrosis. Because of the fibrosis, you see this is dilated. Here it is dilated because of the fibrosis there is obstruction and duct is dilated. So its whole architecture is distorted and the bile is pancreatic juice is not excreted. So pancreatic duct which is dilated here sometimes burst and this results in leakage into the peritoneum. Now what is the diagnostic workup? How we investigate these patients? Investigations, simple way is the plain abdominal X-ray which shows calcified pancreatic tissue. Other is the CT scan abdomen. This may show the atrophy, calcification. Other is the ultrasound of the abdomen, and moreover the endoscopic ultrasound. These all give you valuable information. Other investigation is the ERCP, MRCP, which I have already in detail explained to you. Biopsy of the pancreatic tissue if the diagnosis of the chronic pancreatitis is not clear. Functional, what the pancreatic tissue functions because of the diabetes. We check the blood glucose level which is elevated. Moreover, the because fat absorption, the pancreatic juice has very important role. Moreover, the bile juice is also has an important role. When it is not excreted into the duodenum, fat absorption is hampered. So the fecal fat and fecal elastase levels are elevated. So these are the functional investigations when the function of the pancreas is not going on in a proper way. So these are the important investigation we perform. There is a picture of ERCP. Here's the dye which is injected. It shows whole of the tree of the pancreas. Whole of the tree of the common bile duct is visible, and this is the gallbladder, and if there is some obstruction, it is become evident on this investigations. Other is the ERCP. Here is the gastroscope which is passed from the stomach into the duodenum. Second part of the duodenum from the ampulla of the Walter, sphincter of the OD, it passed into the common bile duct and goes above into the bile duct to see for any stone or stricture. If there is some stricture, we put some stent to dilate it. So ERCP is very important investigations. Other is, this is the plain X-ray abdomen which shows the calcification. Here is the calcification which typically occurred in the chronic pancreatitis. So these are the basic investigations which are shown in different pictures, and you must know all these things. Now the last part is the treatment. Basically there is no particular treatment available for the chronic pancreatitis. We do the treatment in a symptomatic way. If the patient is alcoholic, we ask him to stop the alcohol and stop the smoking. Other is the pain control management. We use the NSAIDs, non-steroidal and anti-inflammatory drugs, and opiates sometimes are used. Other is the replacement of the exocrine and endocrine functions, like we give the oral pancreatic enzymes, we give the calcium, we give the vitamin D replacement, and for the diabetic patient we give the insulin. So all these are the replacement therapy which we perform, and we call it as the symptomatic management. So there is no specific management, we just give symptomatic management. This is all for the chronic pancreatitis. First acute pancreatitis, now this is the chronic pancreatitis. Now we move to the next important organ of the body, which is the liver. Liver is known as the hepatobiliary system. Basically, we see the liver is a large organ which is situated, solid organ which is situated just below the right side of the diaphragm, and some part of it is also below the left side of the diaphragm. We can say it is an upper abdominal structure, and it is a solid organ. Moreover, its anatomy is that it is an intraperitoneal structure and bounded by the right dome of the diaphragm, and it's very important structure. It has the dual blood supply, means blood supply is from the two ways. First is the arterial, other is the portal venous systems. Moreover, the secretion of the bile is drained by the common bile duct into the duodenum. CBD is common bile duct, and venous drainage is into the inferior vena cava via the hepatic veins. This is the brief, so we can say the anatomy. You have learned the detailed in your anatomy lectures, but this is just a brief introduction of the liver. Here is the structure of the liver: right lobe, left lobe, bile ducts, common bile duct, gallbladder, cystic duct is joined, common bile duct. Here is the pancreatic duct which also joined, and at the ampulla of the water it opened into the second part of the duodenum. So this is a basic anatomy. This is the basically histological structure of the liver. This is the acinar structure, how the acinar lie and it open into the ducts. Here is the duct where its pores are there, from where the juice produced in the liver cells is drained into the ducts, and it is ultimately into the bile ducts, and bile ducts open into the second part of the duodenum. This is the basic anatomy. Now important is what are the functions of the liver, which are very important for us. Basically, liver is a very important organs, and it has many functions. It means that functions are in multifarious. Some of its functions are related with the synthetic functions, and some are the detoxification function. So it has a variety of the functions. Basically, it produces 500 separate biochemical process goes on in one single liver cell. This is very astonishing that one liver cell is producing functioning 5 different biochemical processes. Liver ensures approximately 70 partial functions with 12 major metabolic areas proceeded either continuously or in biological rhythms and according to the various specific requirements. I have already told you its function is very wide way. Its metabolic functions, its detoxification, exocrine functions, endocrine functions. So it is a wonderful organ, we can say it. If we see the basic detail, first is the bilirubin metabolism. Bilirubin metabolism, basically bilirubin is mainly produced from the breakdown of the mature red blood cells in the Kupffer cells of the liver and in the reticuloendothelial system. Biliverdin is formed from the heme after removal of the iron, and this biliverdin is reduced to form the bilirubin. So this bilirubin produced is unconjugated and in water insoluble and is transported to the liver while attaching to the albumin, and bilirubin dissociates from the albumin and is taken by the hepatic cell where it is conjugated with the glucuronic acid and is excreted in the bile. So this important function will take place in the liver. Last part of this means last part of the red blood cell damage occurred in the liver cells. So this is levels are increased if there is disease in the liver cells. Other is the porphyrin metabolism. This is an also important product which is produced, and its metabolism occurred in the liver. Other is the bile acid metabolism. Bile acids, these are basically synthesized in the hepatocytes from the cholesterol. They are excreted in the bile and then pass into the duodenum. Bile acids are basically detergents and cause the fat solubilization that is necessary for absorption of the lipids and lipid soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E and K. If its excretion is decreased from the liver cells, this causes the pruritus, means itching on the whole of the body. Moreover, vitamin K, which is very important, if this deficiency occur because of decreased secretion of the bile acids, this results in bleeding disorder, basically due to the deficiency of vitamin K. And moreover, steatorrhea, which is fatty stool, is due to the fat malabsorption. So it is very important in body's metabolic part. Other is the amino acid and protein metabolism. Basically the protein metabolism and occur in the liver, because this is very central organ for both for the protein catabolism and synthesis of the urea. Ammonia is basically produced by the degradation of the amino acid, which is converted into the urea. Urea is secreted by the liver cells into the plasma for excretion by the kidney. So in the very important function that protein metabolism, it basically converts the ammonia into the urea, because we know that if the ammonia level is high, it is an important part that there is some problem with the liver disease, because in hepatic end stage liver disease, ammonia level is very high and it causes the harmful effect to the brain, and this leads to the hepatic encephalopathy. Other important function is the carbohydrate metabolism, because the liver is the main source of plasma glucose, and it is also the main body storage site for the glycogen. If we have the fasting state, means we are not eating some food, then glucose is derived from the breakdown of the glycogen by the process of the glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis. Okay, and then if there is some damage to the liver cells, then this when we are not eating something or we have the fasting state, this leads to the hypoglycemia. Next important function is the lipid and lipoprotein metabolism. Liver synthesize triglyceride, cholesterols, phospholipids and lipoproteins, which is very important functions. Other is the hormone metabolism. Basically it metabolizes many hormones produced in the body, because if they are not metabolized, this leads to the different effects in the body, like we can say that estrogen levels become raised and other hormones which are also metabolized in the liver. Other is the vitamin metabolism. I have already told you the fat soluble vitamins K and other they are very important for the body function. Moreover, the vitamins are also metabolized in the liver. Moreover, trace elements like the zinc and copper, they are handled by the liver. We know that a disease due to the copper level elevation, which is known as the Wilson disease, is basically the defective handling of the liver cells of the copper. Biotransformation and detoxification functions. Basically liver plays a very important role in detoxification of the nitrogenous compounds derived from the intestine, as well as many other chemicals and drugs which are taken up by us. They are detoxified in the liver. Other is the alcohol degradation. If the alcoholic people, they develop the alcoholic cirrhosis if they are repeatedly take this, because not only liver degraded, but liver itself is also destroyed because of the effect of the alcohol. Moreover, it also maintains the acid based metabolism in the body. So I have told you in detail 12 important functions of the liver which are done by the liver cell. If their liver itself is not functioning properly, these all functions are disturbed and the body has its effects then. Now we move to the lab test for evaluation of the liver functions, which is known as the liver functions tests, which are known as the LFT. LFT basically the enzymes which are produced from the liver cells, their production and metabolism is destroyed. First is the bilirubin level. Normal bilirubin level is usually less than 1 milligram per deciliter. Both contain the direct and indirect bilirubin. Direct bilirubin is usually 0.25 milligram per deciliter, and the other part is the indirect bilirubin, which is unconjugated. So the jaundice become evident on the body when the bilirubin level exceeds 2.5 milligram per deciliter. If we see the part, bilirubin has the two part, important part, conjugated and unconjugated. Conjugated has its significance, unconjugated has its own significance. First we see the unconjugated bilirubinemia or indirect hyperbilirubinemia, because this indirect bilirubinemia results in impaired conjugation in the liver cells. Its levels increased due to the hemolysis, because I have already told you process start from the RBC destruction, heme and globulin parts. Okay, when there is increased destruction of the red blood cells, which commonly occur in the malaria and autoimmune or some other hemolytic anemias, the increased red blood cells production occur. So in direct bilirubin or unconjugated bilirubin level occur in the malaria and hemolytic anemias. Moreover, defective hepatic uptake of bilirubin in Gilbert syndrome, which is a congenital disease, this level is also high. Other is the conjugated bilirubinemia. Conjugated, basically conjugation occur in the liver cells, and if there is intrahepatic obstruction to the bile flow, we call it intrahepatic cholestasis. This may be due to the viral hepatitis, alcoholic disease, septicemia, biliary cirrhosis, pregnancy and drugs. This all produces the intrahepatic cholestasis. This also results in hyperbilirubinemia, but mind it, this hyperbilirubinemia is mainly conjugated one. Okay, this is conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So if there is unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, we diagnose it as RBC hemolysis, like in malaria, hemolytic anemia. If conjugated bilirubinemia, we diagnose the patient as due to the viral hepatitis, alcoholic liver disease, septicemia or other causes. Next investigation is the ALT, which is alanine aminotransferases. Next investigation is the AST, which is the aspartate aminotransferases. ALT is basically very specific for the liver tissues, and it is primarily increased in the liver disease, while AST level is also increased in other conditions like heart disease, skeletal muscle disease, kidney disease, brain disease. So AST is not specific for the heart, not for the liver diseases. It is also increased in other conditions also. But we must know that AST level is usually normally less than 35 units per liter, and in the AST level become twice the ALT level in typically in alcoholic hepatitis. So these levels are increased in both the ALT and ST levels are increased in the acute hepatitis. Next is the ALP, which is alkaline phosphatase. Basically, alkaline phosphatase is present in the canalicular and sinusoidal membranes of the liver cells. Its levels increased when the hepatocytes are damaged, like alkaline phosphatase is liberated into the blood cells from the cells which are killed. As a result, alkaline phosphatase level rises, but not more than two folds. In obstructive jaundice, very high levels are found, usually 4 to 6 times the normal levels. Moreover, in the other conditions like metastatic disease, its levels are increased, and in cirrhosis of the liver, like we call it CLD, its levels are also increased. And in post-hepatic obstruction, like in the primary biliary cirrhosis, its levels are increased. So, alkaline phosphatase levels are increased in the acute liver insult. Moreover, its levels are also increased in the obstructive jaundice, means post-hepatic diseases. Other is the gamma GT levels. Gamma GT level is also present in the hepatobiliary system, and in liver diseases its levels correlates with the level of alkaline phosphatase. It is typically increased in the alcoholic liver disease, in pancreatitis, in cardiac and pulmonary disorders. So it is also increased not only in the liver diseases but other diseases, its levels are also increased. So its levels are highest increased in the biliary obstructions. Other functions are the synthetic functions which are disturbed in the liver disease. First is the albumin. Basically, albumin is synthesized in the liver. In chronic liver disease, like in cirrhosis of the liver disease, its production is decreased. Normal level of the albumin is 3.5 to 5.5. So in the diseases, its level in disease of the liver, its level is low. But we must know that it is excreted from the kidney diseases like the nephrotic syndrome. If its level is low, we see that disease is either located in the liver tissue or in the kidney tissue. Other functions are the coagulation factor. We call it the PT, APTT. PT is the basically prothrombin time. APTT is the activated partial thromboplastin times. Basically, the PT is the decreased. PT level is prolonged in the impaired synthesis of the clotting factors, which are basically dependent on the vitamin K. Vitamin K dependent clotting factors are 5, 7 and 10. So because of the deficiency of the vitamin K, these factors production is decreased, and this results in clotting disorders. So this is very important function of the liver. Moreover, activated partial thromboplastin time, which results the activity of the fibrinogen, which is factor number 1, prothrombin, which is factor number 2, and factor number 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, which are also prolonged in the liver disease. So these factors are disturbed in the liver disease. Moreover, the bile acids, I have already explained to you, its level is increased in the obstructive jaundice. So these are the basic tests and their significance. Other investigations are the imaging investigation, which is the ultrasound abdomen, and ultrasound we see the liver size, and we can, by the help of the ultrasound, we can see the cirrhosis or fibrosis of the liver. We can see the in the malignant tumor, or if there is some stone obstructed in the common bile duct, we can diagnose with the help of ultrasound. Next investigation is the CT scan abdomen, which is very important, and its importance is also very vital, especially for the small malignant tumor located in the liver cell. We perform the triphasic CT scan, and by this we can locate the hepatocellular carcinoma or some metastatic disease in the liver. Other is the ERCP and MRCP. Basically, these are the tests performed with the help of the gastroscope. Here is the basic structure of the hepatobiliary system, and this is the liver, pancreas, duodenum, and in the next we see the gastroscope. This is the pipe of the gastroscope. From here, from the ampulla, we insert the small pipe like structure into the with a camera attached, and we see we can visualize whole of the bile duct with the help of the ERCP. This is the ERCP test, and basically the dye is injected into the common bile duct, and we can see the whole of the tree of the common bile duct into the right hepatic bile duct left, and in the liver cells. The whole of this is visualized with the help of the ERCP. Now next is the what are the signs and symptoms of the liver disease. We can say signs and symptoms are basically very wide, because of the some symptoms are produced because of its own tissue, some are produced because of the metabolic disturbances, and some of the signs and symptoms are produced because of the endocrine and exocrine functions of the liver disease. Signs and symptoms, common signs and symptoms are the fever, malaise, nausea, vomiting, yellow discoloration of the skin and eyes, clay colored stool, dark colored urine, itching, abdominal pain, abdominal distension, bruising, abnormal bleeding, cachexia means loss of appetite. I will, in the next 2 slides I will explain these things. Other is the jaundice. Basically, jaundice is the yellowish discoloration of the body. Normal level is the less than 1, and because physically it becomes evident when its level is more than 2.5. So jaundice is very important symptoms, and there is we can divide it into the 3 important types: conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, and mixed disease. Conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, I have explained to you in detail that conjugation basically occurred in the liver cells. If there is disease of the liver like intrahepatic cholestasis due to viral hepatitis, alcoholic liver disease, or some sepsis, biliary cirrhosis, pregnancy, oral contraceptive pills use, or some androgens, this all leads to the high level of the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Moreover, extrahepatic obstruction to the bile flow due to some gallstone, or some obstruction of the biliary tree due to some carcinoma of the head of the pancreas or biliary structure, this all leads to the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Next is the unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Basically, this is due to the hemolysis of the red blood cells. This occurs especially in the diseases like the malaria, hemolytic anemia. Moreover, a congenital disease which is known as the Gilbert syndrome, where there is a defective hepatic uptake of the bilirubin, and so unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Third is the mixed hyperbilirubinemia. Basically, this also occurred in the liver injury like acute hepatitis or some other diseases which leads to the inflammation of the liver tissue, which is known as the hepatitis. So this is the basic mechanism which I have already told you. This is the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin basically is contained in the red blood cells. So heme part which is converted in the heme oxygenase to the biliverdin in the reticuloendothelial systems, and the biliverdin is taken, it is converted to the bilirubin, which is unconjugated, and it is bound to the albumin, and it goes to the liver cells from where the conjugation occur in the liver cells. And one important type of the jaundice is the physiological jaundice. You must know this thing. Physiological jaundice basically develop in the newborn babies, and it is basically unconjugated bilirubinemia, and its concentration is high during the first week, and normally it autocorrectly within a week or 10 days, sometimes in that in a little bit durations. Basically in this the yellowish discoloration, and it's very worrying for the parents when they look on their baby has the yellowish discoloration. But doctors are not very much worried, because it is a physiological neonatal jaundice, and it is treated spontaneously without giving any medication. Sometimes we give the vitamin K for this. This is the picture which I have already told you. This is the pictures of the jaundice. This is the yellowish discoloration of the in the eye sclera. This is the yellowish discoloration on the undersurface of the tongue, yellowish discoloration on the hands and the face. So this all occurred in the jaundice. Now the chronic liver disease. What are the symptoms of the chronic liver disease, which is known as the CLD? Basically in this right hypochondrial pain occurred. In the liver disease, when it's a liver disease, the functions are also disturbed. Ankle swelling because of the hypoalbuminemia, pruritus because of the bile salts, and hematemesis means blood in the vomiting. And if the liver functions are totally deranged, I have told you the ammonia-like toxic substances are not metabolized in the liver, and this leads to the hepatic encephalopathy, confusion, and ultimately hepatic coma. Other signs of the chronic liver disease are the palmar erythema. I will show you the picture. Clubbing, Dufresne contracture, spider nevi, and jaundice. This is the palmar erythema. You see the red discoloration on the at the periphery of the palm, and central is the pale. This is the palmar erythema, which is typically seen in patient of the chronic liver disease. This is the palmar erythema, redness at the periphery, and central is the pale. Next is the clubbing. Okay, nail bed and nail fold. There is obliteration of the angle, especially you see here. There is obliteration of the angle. There is we can say that there is a drum shape appearance of the tips of the fingers. So this is the clubbing. Clubbing has the stages which is we will discuss in the clinical lecture. Other is the Dufresne contracture. Basically this is the contracture here. This is the ring finger, and it is moved inward. You see, this is flexed here. Other fingers are extended, and because partially this is also flexed here. This is known as the Dufresne contracture, because here the tendon is very prominent, and you can feel by the help of palpation. This occur in the especially in the alcoholic cirrhosis. This is Dufresne contracture. This is the spider nevi. This is the central arterioles, and these are the branches. If we put some pin or some pressure, periphery is blanched, because from here the blood comes and it spreads in the periphery. If the central arteriole is pressed, periphery become vanished. This is the spider nevi. This is typically, these are other spider nevi. This is typically seen in the cirrhosis of the liver. Here is the jaundice, yellowish discoloration. I have shown you also the other picture. Under surface of the tongue, on the face, sclera, and other part of the body where you see the yellowish discoloration, which is jaundice. Here you see the hands, normal hand, and the yellowish discoloration, which is especially seen in the chronic liver disease. Jaundice is basically hyperbilirubinemia. Now in the liver, chronic liver disease in the abdomen, we see the hepatomegaly means liver size is increased, splenomegaly, spleen size is increased, ascites is basically fluid collection in the abdomen. Other is the endocrine dysfunction because of the testosterone hormones deficiency. Patient have the testicular atrophy, means its testes become small in size. Other is the gynecomastia. This again due to the low level of the testosterone level and high level of the estrogen level, males develop gynecomastia, mean increased size of the breast tissue. We can divide it another picture. This is the signs and symptoms on the chest: loss of hair because of the hormonal effects. Gynecomastia, you can see that breast tissue is enlarged. There are many spider nevi. Here you see the spider nevi and scratch marks because of the itching occurred in the chronic liver disease because of the bile salts. Patient had the itching, so there are the scratch mark on the chest wall and other body areas. Here are the signs and symptoms in the abdomen. You see the scars. Patient have the scars mark. Abdominal distension due to the ascites. Caput medusae, these are the engorged veins around the umbilicus. They become engorged and it looks like a caput medusae. This sign is very important. We ask the patient to stand and these veins around the umbilicus, they are engorged, and this is known as the caput medusae. Other is the hepatomegaly, liver size become increased in chronic liver disease. Splenomegaly, spleen also increased because of portal hypertension, and ascites develop, means fluid in the peritoneal cavity. There are many mechanisms. One important mechanism is hypoalbuminemia, so fluid collects in the abdominal cavity. Now next topic is the what are the causes of hepatomegaly, means what are the causes of when we see the liver size is increased. Sometimes this is very important question which is asked in your written question. Write down the causes of liver enlargement or hepatomegaly. So you must know the causes of hepatomegaly. Leukemia, acute chronic lymphocytic leukemia, chronic myeloid leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia, all in the leukemias and lymphomas, the liver size is increased. Other cause is the heart failure because of hepatic congestion, so liver size is increased in congestive cardiac failure. Hepatitis, liver size also increased. In hepatocellular carcinoma and metastatic disease to the liver cells, liver size is also increased and we call it as hepatomegaly. Other important cause is the primary biliary cirrhosis and hemochromatosis. Basically hemochromatosis is the increased iron deposition in the liver cells and other tissues. So this is hemochromatosis, the liver size is also increased. Other hydatid cyst is also cause increase in liver size and hepatomegaly. Infections like glandular fevers, infectious mononucleosis, which is known as infectious mononucleosis, and other is the infectious hepatitis, also the liver size increased. Next is we see the splenomegaly, where the spleen size is increased. We met the increased size of the spleen in the malaria. You also have the knowledge of the malaria because of the Plasmodium vivax, ovale, falciparum, all these cause the malaria and they cause increase in size of the spleen. Kala-azar, schistosomiasis basically. Other is the portal hypertension secondary to the cirrhosis of the liver. The splenomegaly occur in the CLD and cirrhosis. Lymphoproliferative disorder like the lymphomas, Hodgkin lymphoma, non-Hodgkin lymphomas, myeloproliferative disorders like the chronic myeloid leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia, acute lymphocytic leukemia, chronic lymphocytic leukemia, myelofibrosis. All these disorders leads to the splenomegaly. Subacute endocarditis like infective endocarditis, you will find the splenomegaly. Other diseases like the sarcoidosis, rheumatoid arthritis, polycythemia rubra vera, these all you see the splenomegaly. Basically these are the common causes of the splenomegaly. You can find splenomegaly in the enteric fever, typhoid fever. You can find the splenomegaly in the brucellosis. So there are many diseases which leads to the splenomegaly, but you must at least remember 4 or 5 important causes of the liver disease, which is hepatomegaly and splenomegaly, spleen enlargement. They are frequently asked in your questions and in viva questions, so you must remember these things. This is all for today's basic introduction of the liver hepatobiliary system. If you have any query, you can send questions to me and I will reply. So you must remember this is the basic knowledge of the hepatobiliary system. Next time we will discuss liver disease like the acute hepatitis. Thank you very much. Again I am telling you, if you have any query or questions, you can send to me. Please read these topics in your books carefully. These are very important and the MCQs and SCQs are also asked in these topics. Thank you very much.